to episode 106 of Nothing to Say, the Fans Podcast. As you can see, we have a new guest on the show. Well, not a new guest for the show, but a new guest for the YouTube channel, I should say. Ben, welcome. It's good to finally get you on.
So great. It's just, beautiful moment to see you guys and be able to do this show. So I'm thrilled. I'm glad everyone gets to look at my face now too.
So the reason why we brought Ben on is because collectively the three of us make up the entire fan base of the Sacramento Kings. So we're going to be representing them here on this show. And then also, Ben is also a crazy Giants fan. Sam and I never got to actually talk about the Giants game really on the show and what happened with them and the Dodgers. So we'll touch on that really, really quickly at the beginning of the show because we do have quite a bit to say about that. Move into the Kings, and then we'll move on to some football stuff. So to kick everything off, I'll give you the floor, Sam. I told you before the series started that I was going to pay more attention to the Giants series because I wanted to be able to talk about it on this show. And I'm glad I did because it was a great series. It really was a good series that came to an unfortunate end. So I'll give you the floor for that.
Yeah, not even just a great series, great season by the San Francisco Giants. I mean, a team for the ages that truly based off of the ending that was had that they went out prematurely in the divisional series. I'm afraid, man, that team's not going to be remembered. And it's so sad with what the work that they put in. Ben, I know you're a huge fan of the team, huge fan of the Giants. I think we should just focus purely on that last game 5, because that's the closest thing that's happened at events. We go right down to just take me through the game, how you're feeling. I mean, this is the mighty Dodgers versus the beloved underdog Giants. Somehow the Giants are going to come away with this win. And unfortunately, it seemed like the Dodgers had every answer.
Yeah. I mean, you've got Webb on the mound, right? So for me, uber nervous, obviously game 5 against the Dodgers and the first playoff series between the two franchises since they relocated, which is crazy to say. So, I mean, we've got Vince Scully going, this is the most important baseball game in the franchise's history. It's everyone's hyping it up. Webb shoves. I don't know. I just, like you said, it's such a sour taste and such a historic year with such in a way, Hall of Fame historic players too. And I agree that we're sadly probably gonna, in a decade or so, or even in 5 years, we're not gonna really appreciate what this season was for this team, how just historic it was, not to overuse that word because it truly was one of the best season any baseball team's ever had. And to go out to a division rival in a 5-game series at home is on a missed call is just such a horrible feeling, such a horrible feeling to just end such a marathon of a season.
So there were two things about this series that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on real quick, because one of the things that I had heard leading up into this series is it was such a shame, first of all, that this was being played in the divisional round in a 5-game series. So to have it end it went 5 games, which I think is what everybody was hoping for. But the fact that we weren't given game 6 and game 7 is a bit unfortunate because you have two of I guess at that point, the two best teams in baseball going up against each other. It kind of felt like a robbery that was in a 5-game series. So quickly, if I just asked you, Sam, real quickly, if you gave me a 30-second answer on, do you think the playoffs need a restructure? What would you say?
No, I mean, they've been like this. Does it suck that a 107 win team had to face off against a 106 win team in the divisional round? Yeah, I guess that kind of sucks. But I mean, it's just a testament to how good these two teams were, and they just happened to both be in the same division. I mean, they were both two great teams. And I like the sanctity of the divisional format because I feel like it's like a game inside the season where it really puts emphasis on those divisional games. Like if the Dodgers and the Giants were in the same division, or say maybe Jason, you're alluding to restructuring it to where the top 5 teams just make it and then they face off, how that works. But if say that were to happen, then it kind of for me, those games where the Dodgers and Giants play each other, it kind of puts a little less emphasis on it for me, because then you really get rewarded as the team that wins the division at that point. It kind of takes away from the rivalry almost.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the whole division, like the sanctity of it. I think you play such a long season to have a 5-game series feels a little silly to me. So maybe just adding 2 more games, like at that point, it really doesn't matter. But I think truly since the All-Star break, it was a playoff series between the Giants and the Dodgers to win the NL West. Like they were 2 games basically for a month and a half. Like they were matching each other nightly, even though they weren't playing. Like you had to be following what the Dodgers were doing, because if you were down in the 7th inning and the Dodgers were up late, like, that's a huge 1-game swing where it could change the entire outlook of the season. And again, then the Giants would be stuck in a wild card. So, I mean, the 5-game series do suck, but in this case, like, it just kind of felt like they were playing against each other for 2 or 3 months straight. So I kind of like the way that structures out. But again, I would fix the 5-game series. It just seems so weird. Like no other basketball doesn't do that. Hockey doesn't do that. They're all 7-game series. Like why have a random 5-game series in the division?
So then the other thing would obviously be the big controversy at the end with the check swing. Now, my knowledge to how in depth people go in with the check swing, from what I could, is very limited. But from what I could tell, it all seems kind of up to the umpire to call that. Everybody's sort of got a different way to look at it, and to have that series end on a check swing kind of felt like a bit of a letdown that the series was only 5 games. Even bigger letdown that it ended like that. So Ben, I'll start with you for that. For the check swing, do you think that there needs to be like a hard, fast rule on this check swing where you can go like it's either this or it's not, instead of leaving it up to the opinion of the umpire in that sense? Should there be some sort of, okay, if he does this, letter of the law, that's a strike, or letter of the law, that's not? And should it be reviewable?
Yeah, I compare it almost in a sense to like VAR. Like, how now we can go and be able to look at an offsides call basically using computer technology with a line.
Yeah.
I'm cool with how we define the rule if the bat goes over a certain degree of the swing, right? Like if you go more than halfway, if you go halfway, that's a check swing. If you go over halfway, which we could probably define by a computer generated line, you can be able to review that play, I feel like. Because that is I hate that call being made by an umpire that's 120 feet away, that's having to check a runner on first base. So they're looking at a potential pickoff play, turning their body, pitch comes, it's a bang, bang, you're 120 feet away. Like, it's such an objective call. I feel like we have the technology now. Let's get it right. This isn't a striker ball issue. This is if the batter swung or not. And in that situation, you should be able to go to a replay, be able to look at it, and be able to decide if it was a swing or not. And it's a pretty obvious yes or no, in my opinion.
Right. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, from everyone you hear, once they see on the broadcast of TBS, once they saw the first replay, it was unanimous. Oh my gosh, That was a blown call. And even if you look at the quotes taken from the umpire crew after, once they saw the replay, they all were like, wow, we can't really back that call. Like, we can't stand behind that. Like, they were drawing a little bit at strings. Gabe Morales was the first base ump, and he was saying that, yeah, I mean, I saw the replay, like, I mean, but like in the moment, like I could see that it was a swing, like he offered at it, but like once I saw the replay, I was a little less sure of what was going on.
Right.
So like people could see it pretty clearly in replay. And I think especially that side angle view, it's just the perfect, if you have a camera set up for that, then why not use it? Like that,
Exactly.
is such a perfect, it takes all objectivity out of it.
Yeah.
For me,
We do it for
especially
out
when
safe, right? Like it's the same thing, it's.
I think I think the worry is, and maybe baseball goes, because this was such a huge call and
Yeah.
such a giant stage. Like we could see this a rule being implemented into this next season, just based. I mean, we saw the when football had the pass interference,
The Rams and the
just purely
Saints.
from one bad call to end a playoff game, and that sparked a new rule the very next year. We could see that for baseball. I think the thing that baseball is so adverse at implementing these new rules and using technology is because they don't want it to snowball to where umpires are obsolete and they're no longer needed.
Yeah, and like I think baseball needs to act on this now, because like we're talking about, so the umpires weren't very good, let's just be honest, throughout the entire series. The strike zones weren't very good. Like I don't really remember any other plays like in the field in terms of that, but it just didn't feel like a very good, well umpired series.
I don't remember the umpires being criticized so heavily and that being such a focal point in a playoff series. Like
this was the best series between the two best. Like this was like stats wise, like win total wise, the best series baseball has ever had. Like the two best teams ever playing against each other in the postseason. And you've got umpires dominating the conversation, when also we should be talking about game 5, where you've got a 25 and a 24-year-old, I believe Urias is 24, two young stars that
they're both
25.
Yeah, because Webb's about to turn 25.
Okay, so basically you got two young stars in the biggest game of their careers, in the biggest game of possibly the two franchises, and they're shoving. Like they both shoved this series, and we're talking about why the MLB can't institute a replay on a missed call. Like you've just got like, it's just so silly. Like I feel like the MLB keeps getting in their way. Like you're losing to all these other sports, and like you keep kicking yourself when you're down. Like it just feels so silly. Like,
well, and one of the things too is, and just to sort of, because we got to move on to the NBA stuff, but just to sort of like, just to put out a thought, the NFL has a situation where if there's a fumble and the referees have no idea whether it was actually a fumble or not, they'll just let the play out, and then they'll go back to replay. So I don't know why umpires in baseball, at least in that sense, can't go, I actually don't know if that was a check swing or not. Let's go back to the replay real quick. Let's double check. It'll take 5 seconds to go.
I don't think it's a reviewable play within the rule.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like if you turn it into a reviewable play, but have it be the ump's decision when they're 50-50 on that, because that is in the 9th inning, and if it's a swing, it decides the series. Very important play. So if it's able to be reviewed, and even if an umpire is not 100% sure that is an actual swing or not, all they need, sorry, that was my cat. All they need to do is just go, hold on, timeout. Not sure if it was a check swing. Look over to whoever's at the replay booth and go, check it for me. Was it or was it not? 5 seconds later, okay, it wasn't. Keep playing. And then you just move on.
I wouldn't even let the umpires make that call too if we're going to institute it, because then again you're like making a call and then you have to, I don't know. Like
there's already precedents for it, because they didn't do it with home runs. They didn't review home runs if it hit the top of the wall or the went over type of thing. Like it was just a bang bang call they made on the field, and they were getting it wrong so many times that people complained so much that now it's like an instant review. Like the umpires can just review that without any
challenges.
Without any of the managers like initiating that challenge, like, or initiating that review. Like it's just okay, let's go take a look. Like, and it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It shouldn't take very long, but who knows? It probably will.
Right. Well, I mean, go ahead, Ben.
I don't know. Even like if baseball is going to be baseball, like just institute it in the late innings and like close games. Like I don't care. It has to be within like 4 or 5 runs, and it's got to be between the 7th and 9th innings. And so it's like, I don't care, but like no playoff series should end like that. Like truly, you just take the bat. You take the bat and you take the bat out of someone's hands. You know, it's just
so Ben. I don't know how you feel, but watching this team And I could not have been happier watching the Giants like this year. Like they blew away everyone's expectations, played phenomenal. The fact that they went to 5 games with this Dodgers team, which from top to bottom is probably the best team of all time. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
the
I don't like it. I don't want to be like someone that's like, oh, I knew the Giants were going to be better than what people predicted. Like I was like, man, if they make a wild card game, awesome. Like I was like, 70, 80 wins, 85 is a really good year, like
yeah.
I wasn't expecting B-Craw to have a MVP caliber season. I wasn't expecting Bell to hit 25 home runs. Truly wasn't expecting us to be in a position to trade for Chris Bryant. I wasn't expecting Wade to be some dude from AAA to just come up and have all these clutch hits late in games. So, I mean, it gives me a lot of hope that these old guys can maybe string a couple more seasons together. Like, I think that'd be fun. I think they're uber competitive still. I think they've still got a pretty decent three starting pitchers with Webb, Gosman, and DeStefani. I still think he's pretty good. So, I don't know. I think they've got to make a couple more moves to stay at an elite level, but it was a ton of fun this year, man. Like it was a ton of fun to see these guys kind of like run it back in a sense and be like every night you turned on a game, you're like, okay, they're probably going to win. Like that's a cool feeling in a long baseball season. So,
well, from that to the Kings, it's one of those things where hopefully that feeling of turning it on and being able to go, oh, you know what, they have a chance to win this game. Hopefully that's something that we're going to get this season because we got to get into talking about the NBA. And to bring back the NBA onto this show, we decided to make a new segment that's called Keeping Up with the Kings. Now, like I said, Sam and I are, well, the three of us collectively are all Kings fans. We're all from Sacramento. So that's usually who we're going to pay attention to. So we wanted to make sure that, yes, we do talk about the NBA as a whole, but we're going to talk about the Kings a little bit on each show because it's near and dear to our hearts. And we're in depth with this team. So before we get into the Kings, like deeply and whatnot, because I don't want to spend like 30 minutes on the Kings. The one thing that I want to ask both of you is Ben, I'll start with you first. One thing that you want to see from the Kings this year. What is the biggest thing that you need to see from the Kings?
Defense.
Okay. Elaborate.
I mean, there's not much to first defense of all time last year. You
one of them.
A lottery pick. You made a lottery pick because of that. You've signed guys that are just kind of dogs that just kind of get after it. You signed Alex Len, you signed Tristan Thompson, you keep Mo Harkless. Like we're not concerned about scoring, obviously. And like from what everything that's come out of training camp, the defense. So if they roll it out and they're trying to shoot teams out of the gym and give up 1 million points as well, like we're right back. We're again treadmill team. So if they could get to even like I think they're saying top 15 for that's their goal this year defensive wise as a team. Dude, if they get to top 20, like I'm thrilled. Like get us around 20. Like that's just a huge improvement from where we were last year.
Sam, what's the one thing you would like to see from the Kings this year?
Man, I know it's not going to happen overnight, but I just don't want to see those nights where you turn on the TV and from the jump ball that the Kings are going to lose this game because they're just not in it. And there's watching the Kings for close to 20 years now. I've seen a lot of games where you just turn it on, mostly against San Antonio, even against like teams like the Timberwolves or something like that. You just turn on and it's like, wow, it looks like they don't want to win. Like it just seems like they did not practice at all. And I just don't want to see that. Like I want to see that to me, if we no longer see those games, I think that would be the biggest step and the biggest like indicator that this team has actually grown and taken the steps necessary to grow.
Right. Right. I think for me, just the one thing that I would like to see is, truthfully, and I can't even, yes, defense would be nice. And especially for me, I mean, I defense, when I was playing defense, I loved playing defense more than I loved playing offense. So watching a team collectively come together and play defense is something that, one, we haven't seen in Sacramento in a long time. But two, it's just honestly fun to watch. When you watch guys really get into playing defense, it's entertaining. But for me, all I would like to see is just note, and I don't have any specifics, but just noticeable signs to go, you know what? We look different than the past 5 years. It doesn't have to be like a big gigantic jump going, you know what? We were like 11th or 12th last year, and now we're playing for a 4 seed. No, I don't care if we end up being a 9th or a 10th seed. All I would like to see is just go, you know what? I can tell that we got better in multiple areas, whether it be rebounding or shooting or the pace of play or anything like that. I just would like to see, in whatever category it is, to be able to point out at the end of the season and go, you know what? We did make noticeable jumps. We are moving forward, because the last couple of years it felt like, okay, we should be moving forward, but we just never did. So, and I think and I hope the drafting of Mitchell is going to help us. So just really quickly on Mitchell, what has been your guys' impression of him during the preseason and during Summer League? Because so far, I think he's going to be my favorite player on the team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like from what I've watched, like obviously loved him. I love what he brings to this team. I love he brings, I feel like we have some dogs now, but I feel like you kind of let those guys like be dogs, you know, in a way. Like he like ups everyone's level on one side of the ball, which is very hard to do in the NBA. And the guys talk about it. But I think for me, what was most telling about what Mitchell as a rookie brings to this team, and like what I feel like guys are seeing in him at his level, like his teammates, is Fox saying he's a top 5 on-ball defender right now in the NBA. Like, I feel like Fox is never really that guy that just says things, right? Like, you never really get sound bites out of Fox ever.
Yeah, he's pretty quiet.
And like, I feel like he truly means that, in the sense that he's gone up basically against everyone now in the NBA, and he has to go against this guy every day in practice. And he's like F this, man. Like, this dude is good. Like, he's going to give a lot of guys hell. And like, to me, like, that's like, that screams like improvement right away. Like, that's like, okay, we got someone, he can play up, you know, size wise, like he's strong. So like, if we need a stop, like at least we've got someone where we can be like, yo, like shut this guy down for a little bit. Like, please, like, you know,
slow him down.
Yeah. Slow. Like let's like stop the bleeding. Like no more 10, 12-0 runs. Like let's get a couple of stops put together. And it feels like we have a guy that can, like, you know, initiate that in a way. So, you know,
I think it's too, just to lend credence to that. I think it's sort of like an accountability aspect too, because, you know, Davion is bringing it every single minute of every single night, right? So it really forces Halliburton, Fox, Barnes, Holmes. I don't know if anything's going to make Buddy play defense, so I don't know if Davion Mitchell will.
Yeah, but like, I don't want to like step on what you're saying, but like Doug Christie talks about this, like, you don't want to be that guy out there that's not on the level of the other 4, right?
And I don't think I've seen Davion smile once. Like, he is an intense dude, and I could just see, because he's a 4-year player coming out of college. Like, this is not a young dude. Like, he's a rookie, but he seems almost established already in the NBA. I for the people that are watching that aren't Kings fans, like, that might be blasphemous to say. I know he's a rookie, but like, still, he's an old dude, and he's carrying himself like he's a vet. I guess that's the biggest thing. And it's really like, I don't think he's afraid to go up to Buddy and be like, dude, that's not good enough. Like, freaking Terrence Davis just blew by you in practice. Like, Terrence Davis is stealing your spot because you can't play defense. Like, this is ridiculous. I am busting my, you know what, every single day, and I need you to do the same type of thing. I think that's the biggest thing that he's brought. And even if it's not verbally, I think it's almost like through action. Like, people can see how hard he is working. And I think the coaching staff, Doug, Luke, Bobby, like, they can all be like, guys, look how freaking Davion is getting after it, you guys all should be doing the same.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sorry, Jason, but like quickly, like, and you're kind of talking about you want to see them show up every night, right, Sam?
Yeah.
Like they had to tell this dude to stop working. Like they were like, you are gonna outwork yourself. Like
your body.
When's the last time you've ever heard a Kings like coaching staff say that to anyone? Like be like, hey man, like get out of the gym. Like you've been here all day. Like you need to go home and put your feet up.
Well, I'm pretty sure Jimmer came in with that kind of attitude.
Yeah, Jimmer. Oh, yeah. Well,
I think the closest thing was Isaiah Thomas. I mean, that guy was religious as a worker, coming from being the last person drafted in 2010, 2011. I can't remember what year it was, but that he was religious for his size, and I get that a lot from Davion. But Davion's just such a more capable defender than Isaiah Thomas was, for sure.
Yeah. And I think with Davion, I think one of the things, because you have mentioned at least because you mentioned that he was a 4-year player from Baylor. The thing that I've noticed too with him is the physicality of his defense. So like just the way that I've looked at it, because I think with him, what's going to be interesting is how much they use, because what they have right now is they have 3 really good and really, I guess, established. Davion has obviously just gotten the league, but with Fox and Halliburton, you have 2 really, really good guards. So now you're adding the third. But with Davion, if you have these 3 guys out there, I think what's going to be interesting is going to be whether or not Davion is going to be guarding a 2 or guarding a 3. And based on how he's playing, I think it'd actually be really beneficial to put him on a 3. And the reason why I say that is because, I mean, I wasn't a big scorer at all. I liked playing defense, and I always felt that it was actually easier to guard somebody who was bigger than you. Because if you were a little guy who did have some good strength behind you, you could really get into somebody who is bigger than you and not foul them, because they're not gonna get pushed around as easily. And I think that's gonna play a lot into Davion's strength, because he seems to be so physical when he plays on defense. I really actually think if those 3 guys are out there, it would be beneficial to put him on a 3, which would be nice, because then you could have Harrison on a 4, which would probably be helpful in a defensive rotation if that 4 isn't quite as fast as Harrison. And then you just leave Rashawn kind of as a center. Now, I don't think Davion's going to start right away, but if they ever went to a 3-guard rotation during a game at that lineup, I actually think I think having him on the floor just as that anchor for a 3 is going to open up so much for, 1, Harrison on defense, but 2, it'll allow Halliburton to also play maybe off a little bit. And use his just his length in the passing lane. So I think you have a lot of options when you have Mitchell out there. And Sam, one thing you had said and you had noticed was his shooting. His shooting looks like it's going to be really, really nice as well.
It's always a question mark when a guy's transitioning from college to the NBA, obviously because of the distance difference from the games and the game's speed itself. Like shots that are open in college aren't open in the NBA, right? Especially for a guy at the size of Davion Mitchell. Like he's a shorter guy, like he's going to have to get his shots up a lot faster than he's used to. And he's transitioned seamlessly in terms of using screens to get open, take 3s behind screens. And throughout the summer league, throughout the preseason, he's shooting close to 45% from 3. And he's only going to get better. I mean, the fact that we have Tyrese, who started so well from 3 last year, and now we have Davion Mitchell, like this is so reassuring that these guys are showing glimpses and showing promise so quickly, and hopefully are only going to get better.
Right.
Yeah, I think him being confident coming in too is huge too. You saw with Tyrese, you know, they aren't afraid to shoot it. I mean, which is great, but love the confidence. Come off the bench, fire up a couple of 3s, make a couple of them, play really good defense. Like what, you know, like it's what we need, man. Like
I think for both of those guys, I think Tyrese felt a little slighted last year that he slipped all the way to the Kings at 12. Because I think he was rumored as high as like top 5 because of how well he graded through the draft workouts. And maybe in a year where COVID wasn't a thing, he might have gone a little higher. But I think he felt a little slighted because of the quality of player that he is. And I'm sure Davion, just coming off of a national championship win with Baylor, I feel like he kind of holds himself as, yeah, like I should have been one of the top picks in this draft. Like there's no way I should have fallen all the way to Sacramento.
Well, it's like two guys too that weren't necessarily like slighted because of like their effort and like game necessarily. It's just because of like one, Davion's size. That was the big question. He's 6'1". How is he going to guard a 3? You know, how's the defense going to translate when guys are much bigger and stronger? Well, it seems to translate just fine. And Tyrese, it was the shot. You know, people were like, that is a funky looking shot. Put him two more.
It still is.
Yeah, it still is.
It's not pretty at all, but you know, yeah. Like again, move him 2 more feet out. How is that going to translate? Like it takes a little time for him sometimes to get a shot off. So, and I'm glad they fell to the Kings. I don't know if Davion really fell, but yeah.
Here's the thing with Halliburton, though. I don't think the Kings drafted him with the idea that he was going to be somebody who would get, a shot off a dribble. I think he's one of those guys who I think they drafted to, 1, create for other people, 2, because he was smart, 3, because he's a good defender. And if he's open, then most, he's got a good enough shot to knock down, threes when he's got that opening. But he's much more of a slasher and a playmaker and a creator, which is something that Fox does, but they have a little bit of a different style to them. I think Fox is really that point guard who might look for that shot first, but is of course willing to give up the ball and get those 8, 9, 10, 11 assist games. But he'll give you 25 a night. And Halliburton is more looking for 10, 12 points with like 13 assists and like 8 rebounds, which I think every team needs in their lineup. So looking ahead at their schedule, they open up their first 4 games it's a brutal stretch. They have the Trailblazers, they have the Jazz, the Warriors, and the Suns. So that's a kind of a rough opening to the season. What do you guys think through not just the first, week of the season, but through the entire season? What do you think a reasonable expectation for them is? Because the West is obviously going to be stacked. Golden State's coming back. They're going to be stronger than they were last year. And the Jazz are still there. The Suns are still there. You still have teams like, the Spurs, who knows what they're going to be like. But just with the Lakers, the Clippers, the Mavericks, teams like that, Denver even, the West is loaded. So what is a reasonable expectation for the Kings in the Western Conference at the end of the season? Where are we going to be talking about?
So I want to say I agree that the West is loaded, but I feel like for the first time in maybe a couple of years, I feel like there's a lot of like different ways the West can go, if that makes sense. Like I feel like there's a lot of question marks with like Portland. What's going to happen with Dame and CJ? Like, is that going to work with the new head coach? Denver, they're going to get Murray back. Is Murray going to be the same player? They're still going to be really good, but like how much better are they going to be? Well, bringing him back into the fold. You've got Kawhi out. You've got a new coach in Dallas. You've got Clay coming back. Like there's still like a ton of like unknown in this West, which is, I think, good for the Kings. So like kind of like now to answer your question, they're a play-in team. Like that's my expectation. Like New Orleans, like again, the Spurs, I think they're the team that drops out. That's the spot the Kings fill.
Yeah.
But New Orleans with no Zion doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy. What are they going to look like? They've got a new coach. I think the Kings this year in the West, like my expectations for them, I don't think you need to be a 500 team to make the play-in, but they've got to be around 500. Like you've got to get to like 39, 40 wins. And I think they're capable of that, but they're a play-in team. Like the roster that they have right now is a play-in team, in my opinion.
Same.
Yeah, I think you'd be crazy if you said they're going to be vying for anything higher for a guaranteed spot. I think that'd be crazy to expect of this team. It's got to be playing. Are they on the same quality as that San Antonio team? I think so. With the roster they have now, I think we have to see it, but I think they're on that level. I mean, they're on the level of Memphis. I think
that. Yeah. Sorry.
I think Golden State's going to improve, obviously. I mean, if you get 18 from Clay a night, that's still just another option that alleviates some of the defense for Steph, and he can have another phenomenal year. The Lakers, I think, are going to struggle a little bit early. So if the Kings can catch them a little bit, and just a bunch of teams are going to be figuring out their identities through the year. I think, like you said, so this is going to be a dumb question. Is it 72 games again, or is it 82. Back to 82? 82. So I think back to somewhere, it'd be awesome if they get to 40 wins. But I don't think this team is there yet. I think that'd be such an astronomical jump to go from 31 wins in a 72-game series to then be close to 40. So I think 38, 39 maybe. Hopefully they get that 10th spot.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they can get into the playoff or the play-in tournament, then I think you can look at this season as a win so far. Not so far. At the end, you could look at it as a win if they make it into that play-in tournament. One thing I would like to ask you guys, because I want to make sure that we do the NBA a little bit justice here. I know we've been talking about the Kings a lot, but I want to mention a more broad topic, because obviously the NBA is starting. So for those of you that don't know, there has been some interesting developments with the 76ers and Ben Simmons. We all know he's been holding out. He eventually came back to the 76ers, but some stuff has been happening at the 76ers facility and with that team. So just recently, there was a quote. It was about 7 hours ago from the recording of this show. I have a quote from Joel Embiid. He was asked about Ben Simmons, and his answer was, "At this point, I don't care about that man, honestly. He does whatever he wants." Whoa. And then there was another report about, again, 7 hours ago, right around the same time. It said 76ers coach Doc Rivers threw Ben Simmons out of practice today, and the suspension came shortly thereafter. There was a video of him leaked actually practicing with his phone in his pocket. So Ben Simmons is not really making life easy on the 76ers.
Wait, he's just waiting to hear from his agent that he got traded. I feel like that's totally appropriate.
So I guess the question that I have for you guys is, what do you think is going to happen with Ben Simmons? And first of all, and secondly, what would you be thinking right now if somebody was doing this on the Kings? What would be your impression of this player?
Get him out.
Yep. See ya.
Okay. So with that being said, I think the reaction that he's going to get in Philadelphia, that first game that they're there, is going to be something that maybe we haven't seen in a long time in the NBA. Philadelphia is a tough place to play. And the way that he's been acting, I'm telling you, I cannot wait to see the reaction he gets on that first home game. They are going to eviscerate him.
He's not going to suit up. There's no chance.
He may not suit up, but he'll be on the bench. He'll be there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you say Philly's a tough place to play, and it is, but also it's just I think their fans are just fucking full of themselves. Sorry, I cussed again, but they are, I don't know. I have a hard time with Philly and their fans, and just I don't know how they.
Why?
I have a hard time with how the organization's handled this. I've had a hard time with how everyone's handled it. It's not a good look for literally anyone involved. Everyone involved looks like their asses out. I'm gonna keep cussing because
don't you think Doc Rivers looks a little like the way he handled that, throwing one of his players under the bus, right following your team just getting bounced. We could talk about the Giants. That's like Gabe Kapler just being like, Wilmer Flores, you freaking what are you doing? Like, you suck. You
Like,
swung at that slider
man. Like, Duvall, you suck. Like, you're never gonna be a closer again. Like, we don't trust you. Like,
oh, hey, coach, why'd you guys lose the game? Oh, well, our 23-year-old rookie pitch closer couldn't throw a freaking strike to save his life. I mean, the guy can throw 100 miles per hour, but all he wanted to do is throw his slider to Cody Bellinger.
Well, here's the thing. The fans can be mad all that they want. The fact that Joel Embiid came out and said that he doesn't care about Ben Simmons anymore, I think speaks volume to probably what the team's mentality is of Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons was on a team that I was playing for, I think I would 100% be on board with Joel Embiid with saying that. I mean, if you're not committed to the team at all, then and you're publicly doing all of this stuff, I mean, first of all, I understand if you're unhappy and you want to be traded. Okay, you have the option to exercise that right in the offseason, and you have the ability, and if you have the ability to try to force your way out without it being a detriment to the team over the summer, fine, go ahead. That's fine. That's your business. Doesn't involve anybody on the team. But the moment that the season starts and you now start affecting the team, look, I know he's a good player, really. And I know we talked about this before about the Kings like trading for Ben. I don't know if I want a guy like that. Really, I don't, because that's just to see a player doing that. It's kind of a look inside of his mindset. And I don't know if that would be good for any team.
I don't necessarily blame Ben Simmons for how he handled, since he got to training camp, he could be a lot better. I don't blame how he handled the offseason and how his organization basically aired him out and scapegoated him. Like, he's a young kid, and obviously there was something wrong. Like, everyone could see the kid did not want the ball in his hands, and he's an all-star. Like, you don't want to do that to your 24, 25-year-old all-star. And they basically did that. And like, I have no issue with how he handled it in the offseason. And like, yes, like, now you've got cameras around and you're with your teammates and their coaching staff and stuff like that. Like, you can just be handling this a lot better. But I don't know. I think all Ben Simmons wants is to be like in an organization where he feels like he's not going to get scapegoated again. And I think you'll see a different Ben Simmons in that sense. Like, he's not going to act this like if he got traded to Sacramento, he's not going to show up to the first practice with sweatpants and his phone in his pocket. I guarantee you that. Like, he's going to be ready to work. But because he's back in Philadelphia, like, he doesn't he has no relationship with anyone anymore. Like, he doesn't want to be there. They don't want him there. Like, he obviously is like, I'm checked out. Like, if you want to send me home, I'm going home, you know?
And I get all that. And you can be mad at the organization, but once you actually start the season and you're doing this, now you're affecting your teammates, and that's where I have a problem.
And
they're not going to be his teammates for very long.
No, but like,
we don't know that. We don't know that.
You know whose fault that is, though, Jason? That's the GM. That's Dan. It's Morey. I forget I don't know how to say his name.
Daryl Morey.
Morey. Thank you. Gave him like a little Italian. I don't know what I was doing. but he didn't have to make it so public of what he wanted. And like, such like, like, he knows no one doesn't want him there. Ben doesn't want to be there. Like, I have no problem with Joel Embiid saying like, F that man. Like, I don't care about him. Like, he has every right. I agree with him 100% basically. Like, this comes on to the GM. Like, you have forced your hand now. You've said like, it's basically an unreasonable asking price for a guy that no one in this organization wants. We don't want him, but we want everything for him. And like, no one's going to trade for him right now. And look at what you've left yourself with. Like, you left yourself with an angry Ben Simmons who's at camp now affecting players. People are pissed. You're going into a season where fans are going to be upset. Like, you haven't really closed the book on this. Like, that's on you, man. Like, you had all off season to get rid of him. And now here we are, game ones, start tonight and tomorrow. And Philly's going to be talking about Ben Simmons for a while.
I think the closest thing to this situation is when James Harden was in Houston in that limbo year, where he showed up a little out of shape.
He was
little didn't look like he was carrying. He still got his shots up well enough,
Yeah.
but his numbers were way down, and the carriage just didn't seem there. And it seems like Ben Simmons is kind of taking a page out of that book. And
Well,
I don't honestly blame Ben very much because he doesn't have control of where he plays. And if he wants to get out, and this is the advice that he's been getting, that he needs to do this to get out, then I think he would take every opportunity to get out of there. Especially, I know, Jason, you're talking about Ben Simmons as a bad teammate, but Joel Embiid coming out of this is not looking very clean.
Yeah, no.
He is,
no.
I think, 3 different times now has called out Ben Simmons, and they were supposed to be like boys almost. Like they were supposed to be in it together, like a dynamic duo. And we've obviously seen that they were not as close as previously thought. I think Joel really has handled it so poorly. I don't know if any stars will end up wanting to play with him after this point, because he is such a I don't know. It's so big for it's all lose for everyone.
I was gonna say the whole situation in Philadelphia is just a complete mess.
Thank God we're Kings fans.
Right. At least we have some stability.
And dads, it's only the dads we have to worry about.
Right. Exactly. So to wrap up sort of the NBA talk, I have really one question for you guys. So the Chicago Bulls this offseason have looked like a really interesting team with everybody that they have now, with Lonzo and DeRozan, and even Caruso has been making a lot of really good plays there. And how do you pronounce, what is his name? Is it Vucevic? Is that who's on the Vucevic? What is his name? Yeah, I always Vucevic. Yeah, I always forget the pronunciation of his name, and I'm so bad with
the former Orlando Magic center.
Yes, I'm so bad at I remember we did a segment where I was trying to name tennis players and it was the worst thing ever. So same thing. I didn't want to botch his name, but so they look like they're going to be a really interesting team this year. So for you guys,
still with Zach LaVine, you didn't even mention
I didn't even mention Zach LaVine exactly. So who are you guys besides the Kings? What team are you going to be paying attention to the most? Who do you think is going to be one of the more interesting teams? Because we also had the moves in the offseason with the Lakers and Westbrook going there. So we had some pretty big acquisitions in the offseason. So what team are you going to be paying attention to the most?
I feel like for me it's Portland, because I feel like Dame's just the big domino. I feel like if Portland gets off to a tough start and Philly's kind of off to a tough start, I can see an easy Ben Simmons, Dame Lillard trade or something like that going down. I feel like, to me, I like that the Bulls obviously are a pretty clear one. They're going to be fun to watch. But in terms of how's the season going to play out, I think Portland's got a very interesting year ahead of them. They really didn't do much to make themselves better. Damian Lillard's kind of starting to voice his frustration and get a little bit more vocal about hey, I might not be here forever. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. They've got an interesting year coming up.
Sam?
Yeah, that would be so awful for that community if they lost Dame Lillard. This is going to be kind of a cop-out. I think Miami is definitely a big team to watch with Kyle Lowry coming into town and see if they can regain that magic that brought them to the NBA Finals 2 years ago. The Lakers, are an obvious one. How the heck are they going to make Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony work now with LeBron and AD? Can AD stay healthy? Can LeBron stay healthy? Can they become the leaders in the West? I think another team, easy one, Brooklyn. Kyrie Irving, all of a sudden might be shipped out of town, and they might get Ben Simmons into their locker room. Yeah. Are we going to see KD and James Harden? Now locked in James Harden, completely healthy, these two, are they just going to take this league by storm? I think those are definitely some of the big teams that I'd watch. Golden State halfway through the year, I just can't wait to see Clay play finally. You got to feel for that guy after 2 years of being out. It'd be so nice to see it might be nice to see the Warriors be good again, as much as we
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Finish
As,
it.
as much as we hated the Warriors when they were winning championship after championship, I mean, they're a huge franchise and they're such a big driver.
The NBA is better when they're playing well.
Yeah. Well, also, I was just gonna say, like you mentioned, like half the league, and like the NBA is just gonna be so good this year. Like,
I
didn't even mention the Bucks.
I was just about to say,
didn't even mention the Bucks.
The NBA championship team, the Bucks. Like, it's crazy. There's just so much that's like, I feel like again, like with like me saying Portland, it's just one domino needs to fall right now. Like, there's like one big domino that just needs to fall, and this NBA season is gonna be like insane. And I think it's already gonna be really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm glad you mentioned Golden State, because I think the biggest takeaway for me is just gonna be, I hope Clay is in a position where he can make some really big plays for them, because to go through what he went through, I mean, like, the NBA is better when one, Golden State is there, and by default that means when Clay and Steph are both playing. They are so fun to watch, and I think our hatred for Golden State wasn't so much necessarily driven from like we hated like them. It was more of the fact that, good God, they're like, they always win and they always got in everybody's way, and it was just the same thing over and over and over again. So if they're good again this year, I think it's going to be a really good thing for the NBA. So,
and another shout out to Atlanta. Can they take a step?
Yeah.
I mean, they were one of the more exciting teams to finish last year. And if they can put it all together and challenge Milwaukee this year, I mean, that would be a huge piece for the NBA to bring. I mean, they're going to be so excited anyway with the lobs and Trae Young dribbling between five guys' legs to swish a 40-footer. I mean, that team is going to be crazy this year.
And rule number one for you this year, Sam, you cannot buy a Davion Mitchell jersey. We need him to stay. So therefore, buying his jersey is off limits. As a matter of fact, I don't know why we haven't thought of this. Please buy a Marvin Bagley jersey.
Yeah, you got two guys' jersey you can buy, Buddy and Marvin, but you can't touch Tyrese, Fox, or Davion. You buy one of them.
So for those of you that don't know, there's a running joke. Every jersey that Sam has bought from
Rest in peace, baby.
They immediately have been traded or just left. So yeah, go ahead and buy a Marvin or Buddy jersey, and buy a Marvin one first, because Buddy coming off the bench, I think, is better than the starting rotation. So
I'd love to get rid of his contract though. I still stand by that Thomas Robinson pickup. I mean, getting his jersey, he was amazing for half the year of his rookie year.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Could have had Damian Lillard, but went with Thomas Robinson instead.
That was Kawhi Leonard's year too, right? Or was he before?
Was
that Ben McLemore? Was that a Ben McLemore, and then we could have?
I think pencil it in as another draft pick that they missed on somebody, and then somebody later ended up being a gigantic all-star. Just pencil it in.
But hey, those days might be gone.
Yeah,
maybe. It looks like they've hit on these last two drafts, so we'll see. So Ben, thanks for coming on the show, man. Like, it was really good to get you back on here to talk about stuff other than I know football is always the most prominent thing usually, but for the NBA starting and to hit on that big Giants thing, it was really good to talk about some baseball and some basketball. So,
boys, it was a pleasure. We'll see after 10 games, where our Kings are at. I'm going to get on here and start screaming again, which I feel like I do about between game 10 and 20 every year.
It's always fire Luke. Maybe 15 games through the year.
Yeah, fire Luke. Like, Buddy's trash. Marvin Bagley's hurt. Like, But yeah, no, guys, it was fun. We'll do it again soon. Go Kings.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. All right, man.
Thanks, Ben.
You boys.
Yeah. Oh man, I am super excited for the NBA to start.
Yeah, it kind of just snuck up on us a little bit. This might be one of the best times in sports. We have Premier League soccer, we have the NFL, we have the MLB playoffs, we have the start of the NBA season, we have hockey. Gosh knows I'm not going to watch any hockey, but it's still there. Like, we have everything going on right now.
I'm actually in a fantasy hockey league. There's a guy in my unit for at my Marine unit who is a huge hockey fan, and he was short on people, so he asked if I would join. And I told him, I was like, bro, I don't know anything about hockey. It's fun to watch when it's on, but I don't know anything. So my team was auto drafted, and I checked on it the other day, and I'm like third in the league, so I feel good. So whatever auto draft system was working for me really helped me out. So I was sitting there looking at him, and I was like, dude, I don't even know how to set my lineup for hockey. So he had to run me through the whole thing. And yeah, it was just a nightmare.
Oh, wow. Glovechkin and Sinechkin have just scored for me. Oh, that's awesome.
Right, exactly.
I love those guys.
So let's actually talk about something that we're a little bit more knowledgeable on. Let's hit the NFL. We've got 3 quick things to do about talking about the NFL. First things first, I'll give you a quick recap of Week 6 scores and the winners and the losers. The Bucs beat the Eagles on Thursday night, which wasn't as close of a game as the score says. The Jaguars finally get their first win over the Dolphins, and the Dolphins might be one of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. So the Jaguars win 23-20. Vikings over the Panthers 34-28. The Ravens, in what was probably the most surprising game of the weekend, just took it to the Chargers. It was 34-6, just an absolute rout. The Rams beat the Giants 38-11. The Colts beat the Texans 31-3. The Chiefs got up to a slow start against Washington. They still look a little bit off, but they find a way to get a win over the Washington football team. 31-13. The Packers beat the Bears. Yes, Aaron Rodgers still owns Chicago. For those of you that know that quote, I hope you saw what happened between him and the Bears fans. That was amazing. The Bengals beat the Lions 34-11. The Cardinals assert dominance over the Browns. Although the Browns, let's just be honest, they are facing a long, lengthy list of injuries on that team. But nonetheless, the Cardinals remained perfect 37-14. The Cowboys beat the Patriots 35-29 in overtime. The Raiders, after everything that went on the week before, come out and really dominate the Broncos. They gave up 1 garbage time touchdown. That caused the score to be a little bit closer, but it really wasn't that close. The Steelers, another overtime win. Well, just another overtime in the NFL. The Steelers over the Seahawks 23-20. And then the Bills lose to the Titans in what I would say was a questionable final call on that game for the Bills. So really good week 4 of football. I'd say the biggest thing that stands out to me was that Ravens game. We've been a Chargers show. We make that joke all the time. And the Ravens just obliterated the Chargers. I would have bet my house that was not going to happen.
Yeah, we're man enough to admit when we were wrong. We were a little wrong, man. Baltimore showed us up a little bit. I mean, just the way they were able to shut down one of the best offenses in the NFL in the Chargers. I mean, Justin Herbert's worst game as a pro, I think it's pretty safe to say, came against Baltimore. Wow, they opened my eyes for sure. I was after Baltimore got beat up by the Raiders, and a team that loses to the Raiders isn't a very good team. So, so just looking at that, and I don't know, man. The Ravens are. Can we take too much from that win? That's a huge, humongous win. Does that change everything in your eyes in the AFC?
A little bit, but I think the interesting thing is all of their best players minus Lamar Jackson are hurt. They got absolutely decimated on injuries on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. And they still have, and I think today there was a report that they just lost their left tackle. So there's that as well. But if there's any team that seems to be able to handle that, it's the Ravens. And give John Harbaugh credit, who right now is probably the coach of the year, to be able to do what he has done with the decimated roster. It has been absolutely just super impressive what the Ravens have been doing. And give Lamar Jackson credit. Right now, again, I said it last week, but I really do think he is the MVP frontrunner right now with the way that he is absolutely willing this team to wins. I want to say one thing about the Raiders-Broncos game. I had mentioned it before on the previous show that I really hope that they used what happened to John as sort of a rallying point. And actually, after the game, Derek Carr had mentioned, if there was anything that came from that, it was that it made them closer as a bunch. And so it appears that they really did use it as a rallying point. And I think what we can look back on with that Chicago game is that what happened really did affect them against the Bears, because they just looked completely off from the jump. Their offense was just super lackluster. So was their defense. They looked unmotivated to be there. We know why now. And to come out and rally around Rich Bisaccia and to have Greg Olson calling plays for the first time in 5 years, the offense, I actually made the joke. I was like, the Raiders threw on first down. John Gruden's definitely not there right now. So I loved the way that they called the game, and their defense forcing 4 turnovers. Max Crosby got 3 sacks. Their defensive line was just all over Teddy Bridgewater. I think he got hit like 17 times in the game. So the Raiders to come out and to play as dominant a football as they did, it was really nice to see. And I think they are a good team. They still have some stuff that they need to fix, but they are a good team. I'm not saying that they're the greatest team.
Say it one more time. One more time.
They're a good team.
Are you convinced?
I'm convinced that they're a good team. And I after 6 weeks, I think 6 weeks is a long enough time to say that they're a good team. But the thing is what's going to be interesting is if they're good enough to make the playoffs, because the AFC now, right now, they're actually 4-1 in conference play, which is huge for later on down the road. So we'll see. I think if anything, I think they might be good enough to squeak into that like 7th spot. I don't think they're going to be vying for anything higher than that, but they have a shot to get there. So
did they finish second last year in the division? Or did
no,
the Chargers?
I think the Chargers rallied at the end to finish second last year.
So they have a little easier of a schedule?
A little bit. What were some of your biggest takeaways from this week? I really just wanted to talk about the Raiders in that sense.
Dude, as you should. I mean, the fact that cannot be understated. How they got up for that game with all the distractions going on. Like, it had to have been leaders of the team just saying, hey, we're putting that John stuff behind us and we're going to work. Like, we are a good team. And remember those 3 first games that we played, like we could still be that team, and ended the 2-game losing streak. I mean, that is uber impressive.
And the thing that they've done is they set themselves up this really well for these next 2 weeks. Their next game is at home versus the Eagles, which is a very winnable game. And then they go on the road against a Giants team who is just absolutely beat up with injuries right now. So they've set themselves up really nicely. They have the Chiefs after that, which will be an interesting game.
I think they match up really well with the Chiefs. I think they're on equal playing field right now.
They might be, at least through 6 weeks, and then they get the Bengals, but then they have a tough game against the Chargers. So they've set themselves up to really put the meaty part of their schedule, really, it seemed, was going to be at the beginning. And then like the very end of their schedule is a little bit rough because they finish off with the Chiefs, Browns, Broncos, Colts, and Chargers. But this middle section has some very winnable games. So to come out 4-2, I think they set themselves up well.
Oh, big time. But we talked about this. We talked about this the last couple of years that the Raiders have looked good for spurts and set up well to make a playoff spot, and then they lose to teams that they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So if this would be the next 2 games. If they're able to win these next 2 games, and really they should win these next 2 games and should not dominate, but like control these next 2 teams.
Yeah.
Then I sit here and say, and they're in a great spot. I mean, Cleveland definitely doesn't look as good. Tennessee doesn't look as good. Indianapolis doesn't look as good. Like, there is a wide open. Pittsburgh doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
Like they are. Miami doesn't look as good. I keep going. There's a lot of teams that you would think would be in that spot, in that wild card spot, that I don't have as much confidence in them as I do in, say, the Raiders right now.
Yeah. So it'll be really interesting, because the thing that I always said about the Raiders was, okay, you've looked really well. You've looked really good through like you mentioned, they look really good at the beginning, but the thing for them is going to be, can you beat the teams that you're supposed to beat? Mm-hmm. And they are better than the Eagles, and they are better than the Giants. They should win these games.
Big time.
So if they can go out and win these 2 games, then I think they're really going to put the AFC on notice a little bit as a legit team that you have to get up to play.
I don't know about all that legit stuff. I think they'll just make the playoffs.
Okay.
I can't go that far. I can't go.
Okay.
Yeah, I just can't meet.
I'm not like, it's not like I'm really trying to
like you're way down the street. I'm like right next to the crosswalk. Like you're gonna have to meet me halfway here. Like I can't.
Anyway, your
go
biggest
all the way to
takeaways.
legit.
Okay.
Obviously the Ravens win. Bills losing. That was kind of a shock to a Tennessee team that was.
What do you think of the last play call?
The QB sneak?
Yeah.
It was like a delayed QB sneak almost, which I didn't understand. I like the QB sneak call. I think the QB sneak, that's got to be one of the highest success rate plays for fourth and less than a yard, it looked like. It was just weird how delayed it was. Like it gave those three defensive linemen time to really meet him at the line of scrimmage. Because if he gets met at the line of scrimmage, he's not going to advance forward enough.
Right.
I know Josh Allen's a big guy, but he's not that big.
Not that big.
The only way he gets that extra push is if he almost takes like the element of surprise where he knows the snap count and then he's able to really get across that line of scrimmage and meet them on the defensive line of scrimmage. That was the only way. So I didn't understand that. Obviously, they had worked on that before, and I think they trusted the left guard's ability to really push. I guess that's the only thing that I could take from that. I think I like the fact that it was in Josh Allen's hands.
Yes.
Totally get that, because so many times guys are this is perfect. The Niners, when they did that Kyle Juszczyk QB sneak on fourth down, it was 4th and 1. You saw that? Didn't get that at all because you take it out of Trey Lance's hands and he's your playmaker, especially on those short yardage situations. I just like that they gave Josh Allen the ability to go out and make that play. Got to give credit to Tennessee, was able to overcome turnovers, and Derrick Henry,
I don't know what you could say about
it. And Julio Jones showing glimpses of kind of showing Atlanta, why the heck did you trade him?
Yeah, that sideline catch that he made.
That helmet catch? That was so – I've never seen a catch like that.
Only a handful of guys in the league can do that.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely lost a step. And I don't want to be disrespectful about it, but he's still one of the best in contest. Like, he is probably the best pass catcher under, like, not duress, but, like, under opposition.
Just in coverage,
I just – so that was a huge win for Tennessee. I sort of like what we were saying with the Pittsburgh loss for Buffalo. I think it's kind of just a one-off for Buffalo. I didn't really see a lot of weaknesses with that loss. I guess the fact that the defense didn't play as well, but can you really blame them when they're coming up against Derrick Henry and he's possessed in that game?
So he had 20 carries, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns, had a 7-yard average per rush.
When I see highlights of his, I don't get how he doesn't go for 140 every week.
I know.
Because how do you stop him?
Didn't he? I think in that big, like 73-yard run, he ran at like almost 22 miles an hour.
Bro, he is a big dude, and he is outrunning. DBs are taking. He's running straight. DBs are taking this line, and he is getting past them.
Yeah.
Like, how does that physically work? And he's just gaining yardage on them.
Yeah, he's an absolute freak. I don't really know what you can say about him. I think when we look back at Derrick Henry's career, because obviously we weren't around for like the Barry Sanders, and
Eric Dickerson,
right,
Emmitt
and
Smith.
we kind of were young when AP was really at his peak, but we have Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry might be one of the most unique running backs we've seen, just from a sense that he's a refrigerator with legs.
He's like if Bo Jackson put on a little more weight and stayed healthy.
Right. I
kind of get
Bo
that
Jackson
vibe from
was
him.
big. Yeah, Bo Jackson was a big dude.
So that was the
And-
biggest. That was one of the games that I took away from. I think the only other big game was Cleveland, Arizona.
And
think that
Cleveland
was-
asserted. I mean, Arizona asserted themselves in that game.
Big time. In Cleveland, we've talked about it, man. They've had a tough schedule to open. They probably have the hardest schedule to open up so far through 6 games. And I don't really blame them for where they are now. Yes, injuries have played a huge part in it. But they really haven't looked like a great team. Like they haven't looked like an AFC contender,
Right.
really.
I think the team that might be able to match them for strength of schedule would be the Colts. The Colts have had a pretty rough opening, but in the Browns 3 games, it's tough because they have a couple easy teams in there, but they opened the season against the Chiefs. They had the Texans and the Bears, but then they played a close game against the Vikings. The Vikings are better than their record shows. Then they had the Chargers game, and then they had the Cardinals game. So they're going to have 2 games back-to-back here that I would be shocked if they're not favored in. They get the Broncos, and then they get the Steelers. But then they have to play the Bengals. And I'm telling you, that Bengals-Browns game is going to be really telling for how that division is going to shape up. Because it's going to be the Ravens and somebody else. And the Bengals are going to have a lot to say about where Cleveland is going to end up this season. So...
And this might be the best time for a team like Pittsburgh and a team like Cincinnati to get this Cleveland team. Because if Kareem Hunt's missing a lot of time, Nick Chubb isn't coming back this week. I don't think he's coming back the next week. I could honestly see Pittsburgh right now knocking off Cleveland.
Yeah, maybe.
Just because of how well they're able to bring that pressure on Baker. And then what is Baker going to do at that point?
Right. Plus, he's playing on a hurt shoulder. So next week, we're going to get the Bengals at Baltimore. So that's going to be a very interesting game as well. We talk about Cincy a lot as being maybe a team that's not getting enough credit. They have had probably one of the easier schedules. They had the Vikings, which again is a bit of a tough game, but they've had the Bears, the Steelers, the Jaguars, the Lions. Now they were tough. They played a tough game against the Packers. They lost on a field goal. So they're going to get probably they're going to definitely get their biggest test of the season so far against the Ravens. So we're going to find out a lot about this Bengals team next week. So all in all, a pretty interesting week in week 6. Had 2 overtime games. Actually, no, 3. I think it was 3 overtime games because the Vikings and the Panthers one went to overtime. The Cowboys game went to overtime and the Steelers game went to overtime. So there you go. I feel like there's at least 2 or 3 overtime games every single week. So let's get into the power rankings real quick. ESPN released their power rankings list, and I don't think it's nearly as egregious as some of their previous ones, but I don't. But ours is definitely still a little bit different than theirs. So starting from 10 to 1, it's going to go the Titans, the Chiefs, Chargers, Packers, Ravens, and then our top 5 is going to be the Cowboys, the Bucks, the Rams, the Bills, and the Cardinals. So those are your ESPN top 10 teams in the NFL. That is their power rankings. Our power rankings, as always, is a little bit better. So Sam.
Yeah, from 10 to 1, we have somehow the Raiders in here. I think that's a little biased. Bengals, Chargers, Packers, Tampa, Dallas, Buffalo, the Rams, Ravens at 2, and Cardinals, again, back-to-back weeks in at the number 1 spot.
So is there anything really egregious from ESPN's list? Do you have any super big gripes with their list? I know the Ravens at 6. I think some people could look at as being a little low. But anything else? Did anything else seem super out of place to you?
I think the Chiefs being in there, I get it. I think them being at 9 though is a little. I feel like Cincinnati's played well enough to be in there at this point.
I agree.
I mean, who have the Chiefs beaten? They've beaten Cleveland, who's not very good now that we know.
Yeah.
They've beaten Cleveland. They've beaten Washington football team who's trash, and they beat
the Eagles.
So they'd be in the NFC East.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. Right. I think specifically with our list, because I think, like I said, I think you and I seem to be in kind of the same boat, that maybe that ESPN, I don't think had anything gigantic that was out of place, but I don't know why I keep moving our list. I'm trying to look for our list like it's anywhere else but on my phone. I just keep grabbing the wrong thing.
So I think the biggest team that moved up was the Ravens, obviously, and then we dropped the Bills from 3 to 4.
Which I think is fair, right? I mean, I know that they lost, but again, they lose on the very last play. I know their defense didn't play that well, but I still think that they are right. Well, who knows with the Ravens right now? The Ravens and the Bills are still right here as the two best teams in the AFC. I don't think the Bills' loss was anything egregious enough to really justify moving them out of the top 5.
And then the Chargers we have all the way at 8.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think some would? Isn't that where ESPN put them? They put them in 8.
ESPN has them. Give me 2 seconds. 1, 2. They have them. They have them low. They have them at 8 as well.
I feel like they still have the capability to rise for sure. I mean, we're a Chargers show. We got to show the Chargers some love.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think the Raiders are just in for this next week, and then they'll be out next week. You
mean when they beat the Eagles?
They'll probably lose to the Eagles.
Okay, whatever. Whatever. So ESPN has Tampa at 4. They have them cracking their top 5. We have them just slightly out of their top 5. I know Tampa has Brady, and I know they have that great offense with their 3 number 1 wide receivers. And Leonard Fournette has turned into what looks like he's going to, or at least this season, he looks like he's back to his old prime Jacksonville form. But I still think there's been some questions on the defensive side of the ball for Tampa. And I don't think it's as much of, we don't think that Tampa is good enough to be in the top 5. There are just 5 other teams who have outperformed them.
So I think the biggest thing people would go to is Tampa beat Dallas head to head. Right. So why isn't Tampa ahead of Dallas? I don't know about you. I think Dallas has looked better in every single game that they've played, better than Tampa. I mean, Tampa narrowly beat Dallas in the opening weekend when Dallas is coming off of a quarterback that hasn't played in over a year. Then Dallas goes and beats the Chargers. They've beaten the Eagles. They've beaten the Giants. They've beaten bad teams, but they've dominated bad teams and looked really good. And their defense has come a long way from what they were last year, which was historically bad. Now they have Trayvon Diggs, who's probably the defensive player of the year right now.
Could be the offensive player of the year.
I think he definitely has more catches than Brandon Ayuk has. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And Micah Parsons is coming along well, and that whole defensive unit has come so far. And that offense, that's top 3 best offenses in the NFL right now.
Yeah, I don't know what else you can say about their offense other than pick something that you want to take away, and they'll use something else to beat you. If you want to take away Dak, then fine. They'll just give it to their running backs. If you want to take the running backs away, then fine. They'll just pass it to everybody.
So New England wanted to hold the rushing attack, right? Because Dallas is the second best rushing team in the NFL. Dak just goes for 400 plus. Yeah.
And it was the most yards a Bill Belichick-led defense has ever given up.
Mm-hmm.
567 total yards. And I think that's been the most impressive thing from Dallas is if, like you said, if they take away the run, well, then Dak's going to win the game. And if they're going to take away Dak, then Zeke and Tony Pollard are going to win the game. And they're fine.
Yeah, they've shown that rushing attack is back. It is as formidable as ever. Zeke looks not as good as ever, but he looks definitely a lot better than he did last year. And Tony Pollard is just a different gear to coming in as a second back.
All right, so that'll wrap up our power rankings talk for the week. I forgot to mention last week when I put up the poll on my Instagram page for which list you guys liked more. It was a 50-50 split between ours and ESPN. So we haven't lost yet to ESPN, but we tied. So, all right.
And that's an accomplishment too, because they get paid for this.
I think it is. But in terms of losses, Sam lost last week in picks. So we are now 3.
What a transition.
So we are now 3-3 in our picks, and I'm feeling absolutely great about where I'm standing right now. Tied.
You're sitting
through week 6.
You're not standing.
Yeah, whatever. So anyway, so let's move into our week 7 picks. Our percentages for the amount of games we've gotten correct this year are going to be up in the corners. I don't know what they're currently sitting at right now, but Sam will do the math later. So
you're a lot closer than you were. I think it's probably, I'm going to guess right here. I think it's 64-67.
Okay, we'll see. So Thursday night game, the Browns, which is actually going to be tonight, the night of this release. The Browns are going to be playing the Broncos. Who you got?
Ooh. Okay, the Broncos bit me in the freaking ass this last week. Why did I trust them? I don't know. Do you ever do that? Do you ever like look back at the picks that you made? Like, why did I pick Carolina?
Yeah, every once in a while, yeah.
This just didn't make any sense, but obviously it made sense in my head. I want to pick Denver because Cleveland looks so bad, but Denver's not a good football team. So I'm going to pick Cleveland.
I'm going to pick Cleveland solely because they're at home. And I think I'm just going to roll with that. They have a long list of injuries, but I don't know. I just can't bring myself to pick the Broncos. So we have the Chiefs at the Titans.
Ooh.
This is an interesting game.
I think I'm going to pick Titans.
Why?
Because I don't think the Chiefs can stop Derrick Henry.
So I looked at this game too, and I want to pick the Titans as well. I think I'm sitting in the same boat with you. I think the Chiefs are going to have a nightmare of a time trying to stop Derrick Henry. So, and because the Titans are at home, they're coming off a big win against the Bills. So why not just roll over the Chiefs? I'd take the Titans at home against the Chiefs, which feels wrong, but that's what we're going to go with. But the Packers are at home. Oh, go ahead.
The Titans are so capable because they lost to the Jets. So they're so capable to put up a flop against Nick Chubb's out for Thursday.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. They have their third string running back, and it's okay. All right, so we're going to go Packers against Washington.
I'm writing Giovanni Bernard again this week.
Oh, yeah.
So who is it? It's Packers against Washington?
Washington. Packers are at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take Packers for sure. Washington, you said Miami is the biggest disappointment. I think Washington might be the biggest disappointment.
Well, Cleveland could be one of the biggest disappointments too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Washington, I genuinely thought their defense, but it didn't seem like that far of a pick, with how good their defense was last year. I don't think anybody had any reason to believe that they weren't going to have a good defense, and their defense just is booty. It's just terrible.
Is a booty.
So the Ravens
Chase
are not
Chase Young, you booty.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ravens are not terrible. They have the Bengals.
I love this transition game that you got going on.
Thank you.
It is like clockwork in your head. All right. Take next team, take adjective that was just used, and insert sentence with next team.
I'm on fire, man. Let's go.
So Ravens and who?
The Bengals.
Bengals at home?
No, the Ravens are at home.
I'm going to take the Ravens.
I think I'm going to take the Ravens at home too. I would like to say it's going to be a competitive game, but then again, I would have thought the Chargers game was going to be competitive too. So we'll see. The Panthers are going to go on the road against the New York Giants. I think I'm going to take the Panthers on the road against the Giants.
McCaffrey's still out, which sucks.
It does.
But this is a game that Sam Darnold and the Panthers got to win. Like, this
They
is a
have to
team
win.
that is definitely worse than they are.
Yeah. The Falcons are on the road against the Dolphins. So I'll take the Falcons over the Dolphins.
I'm going to take the Dolphins.
Okay. I don't feel great about the Atlanta pick, but I'm going to roll with Matty Ice.
So it worked out last week when I picked Jacksonville, though. That did
Right,
work out.
It did. You're right. You're right. I'll take the Patriots at home against the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta take. I can't take a rookie quarterback against Bill Belichick.
Right.
I don't know where that started, but it is a mantra that everyone lives by.
It's a thing. It is a thing. I'm going to take the Raiders at home against the Eagles. Like I said, I'm never going to pick against my team. So
I'll take the Raiders.
yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm assuming you're also going to take the Rams at home against the Lions. Each quarterback playing against their former team.
Revenge games.
Yep.
Yo, like that would be an awesome first Lions win.
That would be. Yeah, that would be.
I wouldn't pick it, but that would be awesome.
Right. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers over the Bears. Bucks are at home.
Yeah, definitely Bucks over Bears. I mean, Bears are playing a lot better as of late. But I think Tampa Bay has just got too much. The reason I think Tampa Bay's got this is because Chicago beat them last year in sort of an upset, and I don't think Tom would let that happen again 2 years in a row.
Not.
But this is a team with how well Chicago's defensive line is playing. They are actually like a defense that would give Tom Brady fits. I just don't think that Chicago's offense can stay with Tampa Bay.
I think that's going to be the thing. I don't think their offense is going to be able to keep pace. I'm going to take the Cardinals at home in a rout over the Texans.
Yeah. What can I say? I'm not going to pick Houston. I don't think it's going to be a rout. Oh,
I think they're going to win.
Another revenge game. Hopkins revenge against Houston.
And JJ.
I forgot about JJ.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson's playing. Could you imagine? They just named my starter this weekend will be Deshaun Watson.
Everybody goes.
Deshaun's just sitting at his couch. He sees the scroll on ESPN. Wait, I'm named as the starter. What? Call my agent.
I guess I better put on my pads. I don't know.
It's like the Gronk commercial. Mom, where are my football pants?
Yeah. Your 49ers are coming off of a bye. Sunday night football against the Colts. Give me the Niners at home against Carson Wentz and the Colts.
Whoa, you're taking the Niners?
Yeah.
Oh, I will also take the Niners. Apparently, Jimmy G is returning as a starter.
Oh, good.
Does that raise your confidence or hinder it?
I don't know. How confident are you throwing rocks against glass? Because I feel like that's about as confident as I am in Jimmy G's health. So, but
who is more injury prone? Carson Wentz for the Colts or Jimmy G for the Niners?
Jimmy G.
What? No.
Yes. Come on, dude. He's been hurt every year.
You're talking about a man that sprained both his ankles on one play.
My favorite quote coming out of the Carson Wentz both sprained ankles was from Dan Graziano on ESPN. He was reporting about Carson Wentz. He's like, he sprained both ankles, which is the most that you can sprain. I was like, that's genius.
Carson Wentz has set record for most sprained ankles.
All of them. And then the Monday night game is the Seahawks at home against the Saints.
Ooh.
A 3-2 team versus a 2-4 team.
The Saints aren't good.
Well, I think what they are is just inconsistent.
And Seattle did play better against Pittsburgh than I thought they would.
Mm-hmm. But Pittsburgh's not great.
I think New Orleans has to win. Would they add an extra week to prepare for Gino? Like, there's not going to be any surprises.
I'm taking the Saints too. So we're just different on one game. Looks like we're just different on the Falcons-Dolphins game.
That's the only game?
I believe so.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
All right, read me the games again. What do we have here?
Well, here though, I could change to the Chiefs over the Titans.
That is true. I think we should get to 5 different this week.
5. Okay.
So I'm gonna take Philly.
Okay. I'll take the
Against-
Chiefs.
Okay.
Now we're at 3. But I feel like all the other games are pretty. They seem pretty one-sided.
I want to take Denver.
You want to take Denver?
It's just if this game was a 10 o'clock on Sunday, I'd feel so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
But we can just do 3 because let's do 3 because there are some games. There are a lot of games that seem like there are some heavy favorites in it. But I feel like swapping the Chiefs Titans isn't that big of a. Although I'd rather be with the Titans, but
let's just do 1 then. If you want to do 1.
Okay. Because then that's our actual true opinions.
I am a huge Miami Dolphins fan this weekend.
Okay, go Matty Ice. Go Matty Ice.
Tua's not injured, right? Holy cow!
He was back last week. He's there.
I know he was back, but did he get injured? Talk about someone who's injury prone.
Oh yeah, I know. Seriously. So, all right. Well, that'll be week 7 of the NFL season, and then also just to let everybody know, if you just skipped the beginning of the show and you missed all the NBA talk, the NBA is starting this week. Hockey is also just getting kicked off. Obviously the NFL is still in full swing. The playoffs for baseball are going on right now. This is the best time of the year to be a sports fan, from October to December. It is just a glorious time in the world of sports. So each of our shows is going to be filled. We do spend a lot of time on the NFL, but we're going to do our best to make sure that we hit all of these sports throughout these coming months. So that's really my closing thoughts. Any words of wisdom for the audience?
Just make sure you stay keeping up with the Kings as much as we are, man. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a great year. Man, we must have made the Kings sound like world beaters. I think they're going to be contenders this year. They might win the championship.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for staying with us and watching the show. And thank you guys for supporting the channel through the beginning iteration of this. So we're looking forward to adding some more stuff to the show, bringing more guests on. And we hope you guys have enjoyed what we've brought so far. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you all next Thursday.